I'm going to give a little background. My ex-husband and I were high school sweethearts that turned sour over time. It was young love at that time. It was more sweet, and eventually it did turn sour, as I said. I graduated in June. I turned 18 on August the 9th, and I left for California soon after that. And we were married in California in August in the same month. So a lot happened in a short period of time. He was in the U.S. Marine Corps at the time, and on one of our trips back to Saginaw, we were at his dad's house, and next door there was this older couple that lived directly next door, the Davises. Mr. Davis was outside, and we spoke with him, and he said he wanted to talk to us. So we went in to their home, and we sat down, and Mrs. Davis, she was already making a meal for her husband. I can't remember if it was either lunch or dinner, but she was making a meal for her husband, and they're already middle aged, or maybe a little over middle aged at this point. And she came in and she sat the meal in front of Mr. Davis, and he smiled as if it was his first meal that he had received from her. And she brought her plate, and she sat on the table, and she sat down, and of course she offered us, and we respectfully declined. And she sat down, and Mr. Davis began to talk. And one of the first things he said to my now ex-husband was, "Son, if you want your marriage to last, keep your family out of your business." Well, he did say a specific person, but I'm not going to get into that, okay? In this one setting, I observed and I learned a lot. The wisdom that this older couple shared with us was invaluable. Mr. Davis was trying to impart something into us that helped. He was giving an example how him and his wife weathered their storms, and they stayed together, and how many years they had been together. So he was trying to teach us. And this is why older couples are very important in the lives of younger couples. Okay? They're imparting wisdom. He said, keep your family out of your business. And the wisdom this older couple, as I said, shared with us was invaluable. And it's still true today for young couples that are trying to have a family and desire to build their new family together. Keep your family out your business. If she or he isn't beating you up, cheating on you, and destroying you, then learn some wisdom and stop venting to your family. Both men and women do this. They vent to mom, they vent to dad, they vent to their siblings, and because they love you, they're trying to help you and protect you. But in my case, he was being controlled by his father. I'm just going to say it. That relationship was suffocating him, and it never allowed him to grow up and deal with life in a mature manner. It put a real strain on our relationship. Now, look, I'm going to be the first to tell you, he already had a whole bunch of other issues, but this didn't help. This wasn't the only reason for the breakdown of the marriage. But when I tell you, it was a contributing factor from the beginning of our young marriage. That controlling spirit, it continued throughout our relationship. Now, my ex-husband, like I said, he had a whole bunch of other big problems, but this didn't help. And it just didn't help at all. And it was one of the main early on issues that I observed and I saw in our relationship. Needless to say, we have been divorced for years, for quite some time. And some parents don't know how to include the wife or the husband into the family. They treat them as an outsider. And I was treated like this from the beginning. And not once did my now ex-husband correct anything or stand up for me. Well, he couldn't, especially when you're, venting to your family and you're running your wife down or you're running your husband down. Is no way that they would stand up for you, because they're the ones that's causing the division. They're planting things in the minds of their mothers and fathers that creates the division. Now, I never understood this phenomenon where you're married to someone, but you talk about them to others. I've seen this in workplaces where both men and women, they go to work and some of the people you're like, well, why are you still with the person? I've seen, this is a true story. All the stories I tell you are true. I'm telling you, this guy was at work, and this was some years back. This is not, my current place of employment. This was way long time back. And this guy, we were in the break room, and this guy was talking, and he was running his wife down. And I know of her, very beautiful lady, beautiful woman, industrious. I think she has her own business and all of this stuff. This guy was painting it as if she was just so desperate for him, and that basically he just married her out of pity. And he was talking about all of the problems he had going on physically in his body at that time. And I got ready to say something because it was starting to get on my nerve that he was running her down like this. And I got ready to say something, and then I said, no. And then he said, he says, go ahead. You can say what you were going to say because I can take it. And I said, no, I'm going to hold that thought. Because I know if I said what I was going to say at the time, I probably would have been in some serious trouble at the time. So I held what I was going to say. But this lets you know that, you can't be out running your wife down in front of people. How disrespectful. Especially if you're together and you're supposedly in a good relationship. And likewise for your husband. Because the person, if I remember correctly, they are still together. So all that stuff that he was saying, I don't know whether you're trying to prove something to people or something, but you need to stop because it makes you look, really bad. Now, I later on visited the Davises at different times throughout my life, in my younger years. And one day, Mr. Davis passes away. And he was well into old age at this time. And I planned to attend his funeral. And I went and I purchased a plant. And I went to their home because I wanted to give this plant to Mrs. Davis as a sign of love and respect. And when she answered the door, she greeted me. And I offered the plant to her. And she said these words to me that just has stuck with me, through the years. She said, "Dear, take it to the funeral home. I won't need it." Now, I thought this was an ominous statement, and it was. Mrs. Davis, as the wife, saw to her husband's funeral, came back home, and passed away. This is a true love story. They were that close in love. And I really believe that love like that still exists. You can have true love. You can experience a true love story. But the two have to become one. And you have to be committed to each other and be committed to weather the storms. I'm not saying that Mr. and Mrs. Davis didn't have their share of ups and downs, but they mastered it. And they became one. And they weathered their seasons in prayer. All of the advice that they gave us, it was Bible sound. If you enjoyed my relationship series, please be sure to like, comment, and share. Share it to someone that you feel that it would help in their life. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel.